Hey, welcome to the breakdown, episode 122. We are your hosts, Tanya Lee and Johanna Burkhardt.
Hey.
We are on our first, guys, this is a big deal. So we are on our first Soapbox Q&A.
It's awesome.
So what is the Soapbox Q&A all about? So the Q&A is, we decided last month when we were regrouping that every month we're going to pick a topic. And that topic is basically going to leave it open for people to come in and, give their point of view, share stories, have questions. We might even pop you guys on to this call with us. And we just wanted to, break things down on these different variations of topics. So this episode is on rudeness. So before we get into this, though, I do want to. We had a very special event last night. It was our first time that we did this, that we went on Facebook. And for the people, our listeners who were not on Facebook or our podcast listeners, we just wanted to give a big thank you for the people who showed up on our Facebook page, because we decided to do a special event to raise awareness for the breakdown show. But also we wanted to utilize our own gifts as a gratitude for the people who were joining us, who were subscribing and giving, helping out and supporting the channel with donations. So Johanna had done some energy readings. I did tarot, and we were on for, oh my gosh, was it
2 hours?
2 hours we were on. It was pretty incredible. We were pretty wiped out at the end of it.
That's true story.
Yeah, but we definitely want to do more of that. And so we are planning on doing that, because we do have our next episode. It falls on a different day. So we had decided to do another Facebook live. We're going to do that next week. So next week on Thursday, we're going to be on Facebook on our breakdown live, not on YouTube. So just, we're giving everybody the heads up now. So, and we're going to
know about your new Harmonia Tarot channel.
Yeah. So I had started, actually around the same time that everything was going on during Lionsgate with Johanna's movement, the I'm Awake movement. I have started a Harmonia Tarot, which is my tarot channel. And it's been a little bit of a whirlwind, but things have been moving along on that channel. So I'm doing tarot readings on there. I've been doing with the YouTube, I do monthlies and weeklies. And so her and I have been combining it, like I said, for the donations and for getting awareness for this channel. So we have been putting ourselves out there in that level. So it's been kind of fun.
Yeah. We're growing quickly, so it's fun.
We are growing. I can't believe it. Well, I mean, I can believe it, but like, it feels like when we started this out, it came out to such an idea of like, hey, let's start a show. We should do a show. And it was like, yeah, because we have all these topics to talk about and bring people, awareness to, and open their minds and expand their minds. Or like, hey, have you ever heard about this? And, we were always the two people that were like curious, the curious cats for sure. Right? I mean, that's the way I describe it, as we were definitely the curious cats.
Yeah. And I'm not someone who, like, even if I believe everything is possible, even if I'm like, I guess it's possible. I don't really believe that, like, that's my way of thinking, but I like to explore all possibilities. Like, you just never know. And this show is just that. It's just opening your mind to everything. So, like, even a lot of the guests that we have on aren't going to be some people that we necessarily are going to say this is what we believe, but we're open to hearing it, where we have questions. Lots of them.
And we always say that. Hey, you know what? We have questions. I don't necessarily, not sure I agree with this, but we want to hear you out. We're going to give you the floor. We're going to, I mean, and that's probably the most fun part about it, is how we are able, we're meeting so many interesting people out there.
That's
And
for
it's not
sure.
like we're shaming their beliefs. We
Mm-mm.
just want to know what it's all about. They're like, all right, well, tell us what
Right.
you think, and how does, and uh, it has expanded my mind with some of the
Yes.
guests that we've had already, that I'm just kind of like, well, that's not a bad theory, or I can understand where that comes from, or how you feel, or you know what, I might not quite get that, but it did give me a little bit of a giggle in a sense, like if that is possible,
Yeah.
fuck it.
I mean, yeah, if it is, I mean, think about it, you know. But
I'm
speaking of doing that, if you guys have a story on rudeness, or people with negative energy, anything around those lines, in the 3D world today, or even in the spiritual world, because funny thing is we think that as healers or energy readers or light workers or whatever you want to call it, that people just are all love and light, rainbows and butterflies, and they're not. And the rudeness alone, and the toxicity, and the gosh, the mean girl stuff that happens in the spiritual world alone is a whole episode, right? And so whether it's that or just regular day life, if you have a story or something that you want to share, or voice, like what gets you, what triggers you the most, put it in the comments. You can also, how do we want to do if people want to hop on live? Because I'm going to have to direct message them.
And they're going to just go ahead and email us. I have our email thing up here.
Yeah,
So they
okay.
can just email us or message us if they have our info.
I'll
And
put it in the chat right now. So it's circus at breakdown
breakdown
live.
live. Yep.
So you can
So,
do that. And then I can send you a link to hop on live if you so choose.
so I want to start this out with what is rudeness, because rudeness is, honestly, it's a perception. Because, and the reason I'm saying it's perception is because it can be cultural, it can be behavior wise, but it can also be how we were raised and how somebody is perceiving it. So it is a lot of perception involved in it. But if you look the definition up of it, it's lack of manners, it's bad manners, it's acting inconsiderate, insensitive, impolite, and disrespectful. Sometimes bluntness can come off as rudeness. I know I fall in that category. I will be honest, I fall in that a lot. And sometimes rudeness can be abusive if it is pushed, if it's actually intentional. But mostly when people are defining rudeness, it is intentional in a level of like that people aren't aware that it's coming off that way because we don't know what kind of energy they're in. So some of the causes of rudeness is obviously negative energy, toxicity. We don't know what that person is going through. They could have low self-esteem, they could have personal problems. I mean, like I said, it could be a learned behavior that they were brought up around it and they just don't know better.
Yeah.
They absolutely might not know better. And then it could be something as, too, I mean, you can have an older person who's just not emotionally mature. There's these people who everybody's at a different maturity level, so it might just come off as immaturity too. And then we have the culture differences, our environment and how we're brought up in different cultures, that can kind of come off too. I mean, especially, I mean, Americans, I mean, there's a stereotype of us being rude. Americans can come off as rude because we're loud. So that is something like, and that's just something that is, brought up in that level. But so there's all differences on rudeness. And then there's also, which I find interesting, is the levels of rudeness, because not only can you have rudeness, but you can also have just being plain mean, meaning it's intentional, meaning that you want to absolutely hurt a person. And then that goes beyond being rude. And then you have bullying. And Johanna is she knows all about bullying. She's done it, she wrote a book in regards to helping that out for children. And
Which ironically probably helps the parents more than it does the children. I'm just going to say that right now.
yeah, so, and that's something intentionally hurting a person, but like it's almost like a cycle, a pattern that just keeps going on there. So there's definitely different variations of rudeness that you can do. But I always have to laugh because I find it sometimes of when you are especially more aware, it's easier to step out. I don't know if you feel that way, Johanna, but like when you can recognize someone's being rude, you don't necessarily feel like you have to lash out all the time, but sometimes you do get in that that trigger mode, that reaction mode.
Mm-hmm.
But I do find that before my first reaction to rudeness was always to give a comeback back, right? And or like a defense mechanism kind of thing. But I do find that you don't necessarily have to be in that mode anymore. Like you can step back and say, okay, what's this person going through? What can I think? And I do find that I do that a lot more, or I'll just look at that person going, they have no idea how rude they're being right now, but I'm just going to let it go. It's like, cause so
Yeah.
it's depending on what mood you're in too, really. And your energy level too, really
Right.
depends on that, meeting different people. Have
Well,
you experienced that or?
yeah, I found the biggest thing for me that shifted, because I used to be able to get triggered super easily by people because I took everything so fucking personally.
Mm,
And that's what it is, right? We take it personal and then we think it means something about us, and so we lash out or whatever. But the biggest thing for me was just being aware and being in the present moment. Not like, this is actually something that I tell my clients. It's when somebody's speaking to you, to listen to them so intently as if you're going to repeat back everything they're going to say. Because when you're doing that and you're really present, then you're not thinking in your head how you're going to defend yourself or how you're going to respond, right? Because you're
so
in the
true.
present moment. If you're thinking of your response or what you're going to say to fix it, or if you're thinking of what can I say to come back at them, you're not listening. You're not listening to what they're saying. And when you're truly listening, you kind of have to wait until they're done to process everything and then make that
Right.
decision. So sometimes, I find it hardest with my own family. So, just being real, like my husband and my kids. It used to be just my husband, and he knows this. And now it's more of my kids. And so I have to practice like putting my tongue to the roof of my mouth and keeping my mouth closed so that I am not trying to get into that mom mode. But it is, it, sitting in the present moment is the only way I know how to be in observation mode. And you can absolutely, when you do that, you can see when somebody's when they're speaking through their wound, right? Or their
Right.
insecurity, or like you said, they just may not have any idea what the hell they're doing at all. They're so oblivious. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, that's there. I remember there was, especially like, you have no idea if they are having a bad day or if there's a personal problem
Mhm.
or if it's just their first reaction that's coming out and they're oblivious to like how it's coming out. And you're like, what is going on?
Mhm.
Like, but yeah, family's a huge one. I feel like family's a big one. I did find an article on pairedlife.com called the 25 rudest behaviors you are an offender. Are you an offender? And I had a laugh because I went through this list and I went, damn it, I'm rude. But so here's the thing. I already know. I know that I come off as that with my personality type, how I was brought up. We have a very dry sarcasm in my family. So I do come off sometimes as, sometimes I can punch a little bit too low under the belt with bluntness. But I don't even realize I'm doing it sometimes. So I really am oblivious. Not that I'm using it as an excuse, but I can be. But
I think you do that with your family probably more than you would with, say,
yeah,
like a client, or even, um, even someone who maybe, like you and I could probably get away with it, but someone
yeah,
who's not as close. Cause I'm the same way. I'm super blunt in the fact, and I've had to tone that back. I've had to be able to say the truth without being so matter of fact with no compassion in there at all. You know what I mean? I've had to pull it back a little bit and put some compassion in there, because I went from being super empathetic to like cold, and I had to come back to that middle section, because if I'm not really in my awareness and I'm just like allowing it to go from here to here without calming it down a little bit, it can come out pretty blunt.
right. It's true. Like it's like you don't even realize it's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So so they have these going from 25 to 1, and the 25th one was being noisy. So being noisy. And I was thinking, oh yeah, like when people are going down the street and like blast music. Now, there's a particular time that I think that there's an etiquette for that. And then there's a
Mm.
time where it's like, okay, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. Did you really need to listen to the rave? Like we know where you're hearing the and you're like, are you kidding me? Like,
I agree with that because, if it's, especially if it's a weekend and, listen, I work for myself, so my weekdays and weekends blend together. But honestly, if on a Saturday or a Sunday, if you decide to mow your lawn at 7 in the morning, I'm going to be annoyed with you.
oh yeah. I
Or
was
work on
really
your house at 7 in the morning. Like, come on.
so my brother and I have this thing called when we switch rudeness to being the asshole, meaning that like when you know that you're being rude and you're like, I'm an asshole, but there's nothing I can do about it. So we have these moments where we just call it the I'm an asshole. Like this is what I gotta live this. So the one of them is we had, and it's probably gonna relate to one of these on here, but when we go to Comic-Cons, my brother and I do our Comic-Con trips. We go on road trips. We are driving together. We are with each other. And there's always time. I'm always the majority of the time I'm the driver, right?
Okay.
So when I'm driving, when we hit a traffic jam or something, I'm very particular about not being that person that goes in the lane that's slow or is cutting people off or doing the right merge, meaning that there's not really a lane, but I'm just going to go and use the right lane anyway and then cut people off on the left. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And we had hit a traffic jam on one of the Comic-Cons, and we were in the car for probably about 4.5 hours. We were losing our fucking minds. We
That's a
were
long
done.
time.
We were done. Like we were done with each other. We were like, we need to get out of this goddamn car. I'm done looking at you. We're done. So we hit a traffic jam and we were so close to the exit. But all I had to do was, just go right in that merger and on that thing that wasn't a real lane.
Did you do
And then
it?
cut through in the left. And then he looked at me and he's like, you gotta be the asshole.
I'm dying.
And I went, no, I can't do it. I can't do it. He's like, you have to be the asshole. So I did. I had to be the asshole. But I was that rude person. People were beeping at me and I'm going, I'm the asshole. I'm the asshole. I know it.
I love that you own it and you're just like, hey, I was an asshole that day.
So we know like when we do it. So we definitely have and I'm curious for our listeners out there, if you are replaying this, I want you to hashtag I'm an asshole too, because I know that other people do this where they know they're being rude and you're like, I gotta do it. Like I got to,
I'll tell you, driving is not one of the things that sets me off, or it used to. I mean, I spent most of my life living in San Diego where traffic is ridiculous and people just drive with no intent, like no care in the world, right? They're going to cross the whole highway in a second and not even look where they're going.
Yeah.
And coming out here to small town where there is no freeways, right? It's all back roads and highways. It doesn't bother me. If people are slow, I'm just like, I'm not meant to get there in a fast way, I guess, to me, I just don't get ticked off anymore like I used to. I don't try to speed around people or weave in and out. I don't get pissed when people are, not paying.
You don't get road rage at all?
No, not really. Not anymore. I believe in everything happens for a reason. So I believe if you're behind someone who's not going the speed limit or who is going the speed limit and you want to go faster, right? And you go over here, you switch lanes, like, over to this side. And now that person slows down, you're getting annoyed. Maybe, or you hit every red light. Maybe you're just meant to slow the F down and not get there in time, right?
It's possible.
You know what I mean? So I always feel like everything happens for a reason and you're not paying attention. And so it doesn't. Now, have I experienced like assholes driving? Of course.
Yeah.
But are they going to hear me if I'm screaming at my closed window or with my window down? No. Is it going to make me feel any better? No, not really. So
Yeah.
I'm just not that way anymore. And when I do screw up and driving, I always like wave at people. I feel like if you know you're being an asshole, or you like cut someone off and you're like, oh shit, I didn't mean to do that. I feel like you should wave at them. Or if they let you in, I feel like you should wave at them. I want more of the courtesy, right? I'm like, just say thanks. That's it. Just wave at me and, give me a thumbs up and flip me off, whatever. I don't care. Acknowledge me. That was all I want.
So I'm going to tell you a story. This happened to me a couple of weeks ago. I was on my lunch break and I was at a light, right? And I was in a shopping center back development. So the shopping center back development roads, they're not very used off. It's just kind of a shortcut you can get through behind the stores, right? But it happens to go across the street to the complex, which is my work, right? Where I work. And you can make a right on the main road. I was at the stoplight, right? Because there's no straight or right lane. Like you have one lane because it's not a heavily trafficked road. There's a person beeping behind me. I have to go straight. And
like honking their horn?
Yeah, honking her horn. I know she's got to make a right. Her blinker's on. I'm like, I can't move. Like, what do you want me to do? I'm going straight. I'm going into a complex. I mean, it doesn't look like anything is busy, right? So I'm sitting there and I'm waiting. This gets great. I felt like I could have been a little bit of an asshole on this, but I'm going to call myself out on this. She got out of the car and knocked on my window, right? As the lights red. So I go to the window and she goes, "Are you going to make a right? You can go." And the light turned green. And I went,
"Oh my God.
I'm going straight and you should get back in your car. You're holding up the line." Because there was another car behind her and I just fast forward. I just hit my pedal, went through. But I was looking at it going like, did you really just get out of your car to knock on my window to tell me?
It's safe to do, people. I don't recommend doing that.
But people, like, I'm like, where could you possibly have to go that it made you get out of your car to knock on you could wait like not even like a tenth of a second.
Right.
I mean, really, it was like,
but I just feel like people are so impatient nowadays, and it's really not safe to do that. I mean, we're talking, my oldest is 22, so she was under a year old, and me and her father were driving on a highway in San Diego, and this guy was, I don't know, her dad is, that's another story, but there was some kind of racing or tension going on. So he pulled over and the other guy pulled over, and the guy gets out, he had a gun. And this was in 1997, right? So can you imagine what the possibility of today? Like, it's just not worth it to like get mad at people when they're driving. Just let that shit go and be patient, people. Like, seriously. But I just can't believe she got out of your car and knocked on your window.
She knocked on my window. And I remember I came back at work. I'm like, guys. And the funny part is when I was talking to my coworkers, they're like, people have done that to me before. And I'm thinking, really? People? I'm like, there's like maybe 3 cars that go back there. And they're like, yeah, people beeping the horn because we're not getting, going, probably not coming out of the car, but beeping the horn because they think you're making a right. Or like, why are you going straight? I was going straight because I was going to a complex.
It's just crazy. That's just crazy. I think driving is probably that. And now I will tell you, I will get some cart rage in Walmart quicker than I will get road rage in a car, because I feel like when you are walking with a shopping cart, like people just walk and they're like this and they just run into you, or worse. Right now, here's where I get really annoyed. It's when they stop and decide to have a conversation with 4 people and take up the whole damn lane. The lanes are so small anyway. Like, could you have some courtesy for the other shoppers? Nobody really wants to be here.
So the next one is for 24 was cutting in lines, which is basically what I was talking about, the asshole thing about me doing too. But I've also seen, and I've, because I go to Comic Cons, I go to a lot of events where there's lines, there's lines. I go to a lot of events. I used to photograph a lot of events. And when there's, I've seen people cut lines. I've seen people cut lines in a way where I mean there's let me put it this way. There are different types, and I could probably do a whole article, and maybe I will after this episode, of the different kind of line cutters there are out there. There's the line cutter that will go, oh my God, did I just cut line? I didn't realize to do it. When they know. Like,
knew.
as an intuitive person, you just stare at them and you go, I know what just
Oh,
happened
I
here.
was the queen of cutting. We used to
Oh.
go to these huge concerts in San Diego downtown, and there would be lines wrapped around roads. And when you're young and you're cute, you just walk up and start talking to the hot guys in the front of the line. Hey, how you doing? Blah, blah. Walk right in every damn
Getting into the
time. That was me.
clubs.
Huh?
To get in the clubs.
Yeah, whatever. No, I mean, this was actual, these were all concerts. I used to use it. I used to use flirtation or whatever to get to the front of this concert stage. Whatever. I mean, I'm guilty. I've done it. I'll own it. And it's totally rude, but I was like, well, if I can do it. Sometimes just because you can, you probably shouldn't, but I did, is what it is.
But that's a good point. Like, when people see rudeness in there, is it oh my God, they're being so rude, I can't believe they're doing that? Or is someone actually going to take action going, you're being rude? Because I've seen it happen on both, occasions, especially at those, like I said, those Comic Cons. I saw a fight break out over a line, somebody cutting in line. And, and I was just kind of like, really? Like, where's this going? But, I'm sitting there eating my popcorn, watching it. It's entertaining because I'm in line.
Someone put, no, sometimes it's innocent. Do you think that sometimes people innocently cut in line?
I don't.
I mean, anything's possible, people, but I think for the most part, you realize.
So unless you're like oblivious, like how sometimes you're at like those like food courts or something where it's like a line is a mesh and you're not quite sure where the line is.
Yeah. Okay.
I have been in those situations where, I think I'm next in line, but there's someone else and I go, oh, I'm sorry. But it's different when somebody says, oh, I'm sorry. It's
That's
another
true.
thing. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, well, sorry to cut you off, but I just experienced this over the past weekend. We went to lunch. I don't remember what it was called, but we walked in and there's no real defined line of who's waiting and who's been helped. And so we stood there for probably about 5 minutes. This couple and the two kids come in, go right up to the counter. The guy walks up, takes the menus and starts walking off with them. And I was like, are you kidding me? That's what I said. Exactly. Are you kidding me? Because those people knew that we were there first. And that was the part that irritated me, was what you just said. If they would have turned around and said, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. You're right. Will you help them first? I would have been like, yeah, cool. It's no big deal. And we ended up going at the same time, but they weren't going to say a damn word.
Yeah. Well, Vicky just said that she goes, I have by accident, but I had gone back to when I figured it out. The difference is you go back. It becomes rudeness when someone turns around and says, no, I'm first. And it's just oblivious. Like, they don't even like, and you're like, okay, what's going on? That's, to me, a perception of rudeness, is when somebody says, like, they're just oblivious of you being here and they're putting themselves as queen or king mode and saying, no, I'm first. Then you're like, okay, well, I've been standing here for 20 minutes. Like, that's a totally different scenario when you do it by accident in that sense. I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
The next one, which I am adamant about this because I have a basset hound who is very vocal, but they said thing of rudeness is barking dogs. Anyone who has been kept up all night by a barking dog knows how terrible it is. You're trying to sleep and all you can think of is how inconsiderate your neighbor is being by letting a dog bark nonstop.
Okay, so I have something to say about this, and that's how are you letting the dog bark? Are you going to get out there and yell at the dog? Like, that's going to make it better? Like, they're or
Totally
shock
different.
collar on them. I hate that,
Yeah. Or is that dog out when, like why is the dog out at 2 a.m. and it's just sitting out there barking for like how long? Like that's kind of things like why is the dog out there? So I think there's some etiquette on there, but also responsibility. And it
Mhm.
comes down to that. I know I'm very cautious about that because I have a hound dog who is very vocal. So like even in the mornings, I'm rushing out there. Susie, house, shh, stop it! You gotta wake the neighbors up. So I think that's like so. But there are people out there who just let their dog out, and that just is what it is, and they let them do that. I mean, because dogs are dogs. They're dogs. Dogs don't know what rudeness is. They don't know.
No, but they do communicate and they are
Yeah.
aware just as much as we are. Their animals are very, very much in tune and very much aware. And a lot of times the only way that they can get our attention is to bark.
Mm.
So I mean, we have a dog door at our house, and our dog, we have a lab, and he's a pretty big lab, but he fits through the dog door. Thankfully without Crisco. So, but he can go in and out. So sometimes he will go out there at 2 a.m. and bark. And that generally means that there's somebody out there or another animal out there that
Right.
he is, trying to alert us to, So those that lock their dogs out there and just let them bark all night, I have an issue with that. I
Yeah.
feel like animals are just
They're
like our
family.
children. Yeah,
They're
they should
family.
be in the comforts, not left out. But that's my opinion. I know not everybody feels that way, but um, so I feel like that's their way of alerting, us to whatever's happening, even if it's a butterfly landing on the fence.
Right. So this was a good one, and I will let you know that I'm guilty of this.
Uh-oh.
Not returning your shopping cart.
Oh my God, that's so funny. I've worked at a grocery store. I used to get so annoyed by people who did that. I always take my cart back.
Now let me tell you this. Now those shopping cart things where they have these like carrier things in the middle of the parking lot where you put your shopping cart in.
Yeah.
If I see one of them, I will go out of the way to like put it in there. But if I don't see one, I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna leave it by my car. Or I'll like all of a sudden abandon it in the middle of a store, like I don't need this.
You're that girl?
I will admit I
Random
am.
cart?
So I have this thing in my head, and maybe this is because I used to work in it. This is behavior. You can break this down for me, Johanna, right? So, I used to when I was a teenager, I used to work at a movie theater, right?
Oh, me
And
too.
when I worked at the movie theater, I would get because there's very few things you do as an usher or a concessionist, right? So when I would have to clean up the theater, I would be happy that there was trash or something to clean up. So my thinking on this and my rationality is I gave someone to do. The shopping cart guy has something to do. He can find the shopping cart. That's my
gosh.
way of fixing it.
I understand what you're saying. It's someone's job. They're getting paid to go get the carts, right? But as someone who has worked at a
It's so
grocery
rude.
store, when the grocery store is getting ready to close and you've already gotten all the carts and it starts to pour rain and some idiot decides to leave their cart in the middle of the whole parking lot because they don't want to put it back, means
It's
I
rude.
have to go get it. You know what I mean? And so I am someone who really goes out of their way to put the carts back, but I get it, and I don't like see a big thing with it, but I do feel like if you're gonna leave it in a parking lot, make sure someone can still at least park in the spot. Like that's my thing. When you're pulling in, you're like, oh my God, there's a spot, score. And you go turn in, there's a freaking shopping cart in it, and you
Now,
have to get
I
out
don't
and move the
yeah.
cart.
Now, this doesn't happen to me so often anymore because with those parking lots, I feel like, especially now that they have those areas for the shopping carts to go into, the designated area for that to go. But I do feel like back in the day, there have been times where I would come back to my car and it would be like walled in by shopping carts. Do you ever have that?
Yep.
Where you're like, oh my God, where are all these shopping carts coming from? I can't even get in my fucking car.
Right.
Yeah. So, so shopping carts, I've definitely been guilty of The next one was, and I feel like this is a big topic, and I have a kind of a gap on this too. So any form of disrespect to the elderly. It says, it seems that days that new generations are not being raised to respect their elders. All people should respect their older than them, though it's difficult sometimes because there are some cankerous characters out there. People should show respect to the elderly by holding doors for them and offering them seats if they need one.
So funny this comes up because it's not really about the elders, but it is about the whole respect thing. And my husband, he was supposed to come on, but I knew he wasn't going to be able to. He is someone who is still a gentleman. So he still opens my car door before I get in. Everywhere we go, always he opens up store doors, all of that for me and for anybody else. He'll hold it open. He'll do all of that. And he was saying his thing would be is when people don't say thank you. When people don't say thank you, when you're holding the door, right? Because sometimes I watch him and he'll hold the door open for me, and then 25 people will come in and they don't even say anything.
Oh,
right?
I know.
And that's where he's like, if they could just give me a simple thank you. And it's true. I do believe that manners are very important, please and thank you, and having
I do too.
respect. But I also feel like it starts with you. And this is what I'm finding with my youngest is when they don't understand how to respect themselves, they generally don't respect another person, right? Or their property, because they don't understand respect in general and what that means. And so we're working through that as well. But when it comes to giving respect just because you're older than me, I have an issue with that. I feel like if you are a disrespectful person or have no courtesy of my time or energy or kindness to me, then I am not going to give you any kind of respect because I respect myself too much.
And I think it's true. It's like a paradigm thing because when I was younger with older people, my first thought was, man, I can't wait to get older so I can be an asshole. Like that was my thought.
That's the truth.
Like I can't wait to wear mismatched clothes, and I'm being stereotypical here. Like this is me as talking as like a teenager. I can't wait to wear mismatched clothes and just say things that are so off the cuff and just blunt and not give a fuck what anyone thinks. In that level. And there's something that is very freeing with that. And there's other things about it that go, really, do you want to be that person? So I do see both sides of it. I do believe in respecting the elders. I do think that though there is a gray line of crossing over of when you're abusing it, just saying that, oh, well, because I'm older, you should do this for me.
Right.
Like that kind of thing where I'm like,
I feel like you should always respect somebody until they give you a reason not to. Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, that's plain simple.
Yeah, I do firmly believe in that. But I also believe if you respect somebody and they don't respect you back, well, they just lost my respect. Like I'm going to respect myself more. And so I think that rule applies to children and adults and whether their person is younger or older, I think that what you said was perfect. It's an old paradigm. I think respect should be something that is freely given until it's being abused by somebody else. And then
right.
That's it, But the manners thing, I totally am on board. Like people should it doesn't take long to say thank you. I mean, for real.
So the next couple of ones on here are to do with trafficking and tailgating. And, we kind of went through all that, or not using a turn signal. I'm guilty of that too. But the next one out of this list outside of the car stuff, which I had to laugh at, was Johanna, you have children. So I know this has got to be something that triggers you. Using the last of anything and not replacing it.
Oh my God. You guys have no idea what happens in this house. I swear to you. I will go and now listen, I have 2 teenage boys and a very young adult daughter. She doesn't do it so much as the boys. The boys have it's like they're so oblivious or they just don't care. I don't know which one it is. But I will go open the fridge and there will be empty boxes because they took the last one.
word,
They just
right?
left the box. Or
Yeah, right.
or they'll
It's like a
they'll
little sip of milk. Like you're
or
like,
the
what?
milk's bad, right? And
Oh, the milk.
they'll come and they'll be like, the milk's bad. And so I'll go open the fridge and it will still be sitting there. Well, why didn't you dump it out and throw it away? Like, hello.
Right?
Or empty cereal boxes in the pantry. I could go on and on about this. And they look at you like, huh? It is? It's empty? It is empty. I know it's a new thing and all, but it just, I can't even get mad at it anymore. I just die. I'm just like, oh my God, I can't with you people.
Or when you become, as my brother and I say it, we should probably, my brother and I should come up with a term for it so we can patent it other than I'm an asshole. When you know you're doing it, like, you're doing it and you're like, I'm going to leave it anyway.
Or this is not the same, but I'm going to do it because anybody who's a parent or anybody at all has got to feel me on this. When you don't replace the toilet paper on the
Oh,
like, you're already sitting there, you already got a new rollout. Can we just put it on the holder? Like, is that next step that much harder? For
the
real.
toilet paper is a big,
Struggle.
yeah, it is a struggle, or it's a big deal where they like leave you like one little pallet. Like,
Right.
not even, it's like a little, like, what's
And
this
you're just
about?
like, oh my God, it's so bad.
That's funny. So this one, I'm not a big, I don't ever really have this problem because I have the opposite problem. But they say a big issue is, or one of the things of being rudeness, one example of perception of being rudeness is being late.
Oh God.
I'm not a late person. I'm actually an early person. I'm usually 20 or 30 minutes early. So I guess that can be considered rude too, because you're not expected to be that early, but I will wait in my car or I'll wait in a parking lot before I get to a certain situation. I have anxiety about being
Do you
late.
really?
I do. My entire family is the same way. We are all the same fucking way. It's funny. I think it has to do something with my mom, but my siblings and I, we are so funny when we do not like to, like, it's inconsiderate to be late. We rather be early. But like, we don't want to be an hour early, so we'll sit in the car or we'll sit in a parking lot until it's like 15 minutes or so, and then we're like, "Oh, we just came early to help," because we have anxiety over it. But yeah, so being late is, would you consider that being rude? I mean, I guess it's rude if it's like super late, right?
It depends. So I mean, I think it's inconsiderate, but at the same time, I feel like, so I've actually been able to, through different methods, like isolate how people, if that's natural for them to just be that way. And I'm that way. I am that person. I will never say I will be somewhere at a certain time. I always use the word ish because I know myself. I'm either going to be late or I'm going to be early because I am a true starseed when it comes to that. I have to wait for that pressure to build to catapult me out that door. And that's just how I work. And so I actually, but knowing myself, right? And knowing this is how I am, then I actually will, if I have to be somewhere at a certain time, then I make sure I give myself extra time. Like, I build my time into it. Like, I'm really aware of that characteristic about myself. And my son's the same way. Like, it's literally the very last second, he'll finally get up and do it. And then we're going to be late because he waited till the very last second. So I have to start preparing him like 2 hours early before we're ever going to go anywhere. But I do feel like it's either you are or you aren't. Now, I'm going to play off of this for a minute because this is the part that really is rude to me. I mean, being late is one thing, right? And I guess if you're really late, depending on the event or what's happening, but if you RSVP to something and say you're going to go, or you
Yeah.
tell someone I'm going to be there and they're buying food and they're buying drinks and they're doing they're going out of their way to do all these things to have this nice event or barbecue or whatever. If you say you're going to show up and you know damn well that you're not, then say it.
Oh, that's rude.
Because I know people who will say, "Oh, yeah, sure, we'll be there." And then they never show up every
never
single
show up.
time. Or I'll try to be there. Let's not do that. Let's say yes or no. Let's just keep it real simple, people. I
You
just
should
think
write
it's
that back
rude.
to them. Let's say yes or no.
You're gonna put it into your schedule.
I bet
not.
you if you said that, they go, "Oh my God, Johanna, so fucking rude."
They would, but that's the bluntness. It's like, just make a decision, right? And I get it. Some people are not, we're going into the whole emotional intelligence and the way that we're designed. Not everybody is designed to make a decision like this. Some people need to sleep on it. Some people need a whole month to figure their shit out, right? That's great. If that's you, then tell me. Just say, hey, I'll let you know tomorrow, or I'll let you know next week, or don't count on me, but I'll try to make it. That's a better. But if you say you're coming and you don't show up, I might come at your door, knock, and being like, excuse me.
Vicky just said, my friend once told me, Vicky, this is the earliest you've ever been late. I totally want to be in this conversation. So do we want to have Vicky on board? Because I think it will be fun.
Sure.
I think we can get Vicky on here.
Do you have an ability to do it, or do I need to do it?
Yeah, if I have the link that you gave me, I can just message to her, correct?
Right. Yep.
Okay, I'll just message that to her. Give me a second. I might be off.
You can talk about the next. So the next one, what we were talking about, oh, Johanna, ready for this one? Improper cell phone use.
There's a proper cell phone use.
So, so this is like if you, you're at a restaurant and you're talking to someone and all of a sudden,
Oh, God. Okay. All right.
come on, you got this. I know you do. Give me a second. I'm going to get Vicky on here.
No, I think the worst one for improper cell phone use is when you are in a public restroom and someone decides that they're going to have a full-on conversation in the restroom. That is the epitome of, well, it's rude and it's kind of gross, if you ask me. That's just my personal opinion on that matter. I think the other one that drives me crazy, and I know it drives a lot of parents crazy, is our children today don't know how to use a cell phone. So like my son, for example, anytime he has a conversation with anyone, it's on speakerphone. Like he doesn't want to hold the phone to his ear and keep that conversation private. And then of course the other one is in the restaurants too. Like I just feel like if you're in a restaurant or you're getting your nails done or whatever, nobody wants to hear your conversation. Like we're coming to enjoy a meal and relax and not hear what Susie Q is doing wrong. Right. It's just too much for me. But I think the bathroom is the worst for me. That just,
Oh,
if you're
yeah.
going pee in a public restroom, I don't want to hear you on the phone having a conversation. That's really weird. Like,
Or what about the
not do
people
it.
who like talk now? This is like back in the day, but like, what if like when I used to do public transportation, or the people who will have their full on intimate conversations on a train or a public bus, and you're like, really? Are we gonna like do we really need to know all the details about what you did in bed? Like I don't need to know that. But I've witnessed it, especially in public, where people are kind of crude or they're just talking like they're talking in their home. And I want to be like, really? Are we going this way? Can this be uncomfortable for some other people? Are they considering that? Or no, maybe they're not.
But here's the thing. When I was talking about like my son, he doesn't know how to use a phone. And most teenagers around this 10 to 14, even younger, they don't know how to use a phone. They don't have house phones anymore. They're used to texting and FaceTiming. So my son doesn't hold a phone to his ear and have a conversation. It's awkward for him. He doesn't, and then you can't hear him because of the way it's positioned. And so he speaks and has all his calls on speakerphone. Then we have to hear everything, but it's because they didn't grow up with house phones. They didn't grow up with having to pick up a telephone and call somebody to talk to them. Everything's instant with FaceTime and texting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So some
Yeah.
people do not know how to talk on a phone.
No, I totally agree with you. Or like people like lose their thing where they don't realize how loud they are on the phone, and you're like, oh my God, you're just like you're taking up the entire like you're like an announcer all of a sudden. Like people don't realize that. I do believe that too. The other one that they have on here, which I think is a combination, and I'm adding to this, right? So it says taking and misusing handicap parking spots. I've never been guilty of that.
Mm-mm.
However, people who have shitty parking jobs, I have. And I will, there is, if you guys know Jerry Seinfeld episodes, Larry David has an episode on Curb Your Enthusiasm about bad parking jobs. And he always goes, are you happy with that? You happy with that? Is that you feel good about that parking job? And I feel like every time I see a
God, I
shitty
need to
parking
remember to
job,
say
I
that.
think of this. Like, I'm like, are you happy with that? Like, are you happy that you just took up 2 parking like lots? Like, what's happening?
But I do that. I take up 2 spots, but you have to understand my truck is considered commercial. It is a long bed. It will not fit. But I also park at the back of the parking lot. So
Oh.
I do
Hey,
get out.
Johanna, Vicky's trying to jump in. I gave her the link, but she
Okay.
said, I don't know if you need to join her as a panel or.
I do. I have to add her in.
Yeah.
Oops. So we are going to promote.
Vicky's going to be
panelist.
great for this.
All right. She should be coming on. There she is. Welcome.
Hi, Vicky.
I just woke up from a nap. I probably have sleep in my eyes, but I'm like, I totally want to be in on this conversation.
Being on
Rudeness
it.
is all, we're all about rudeness. So Vicky, we were just talking about parking jobs and how like when they're awful and when people take up 2 lanes and shit like that. And I was just saying there's a Seinfeld episode, especially with Larry David with Curb Your Enthusiasm that he does, and he always says, are you happy with that parking job? It's my favorite episode.
Yeah, where people actually will leave signs on your car.
I've done that. I've left signs on people's car. I actually had them printed, like mass produced. This was way before I was awake. And I would leave it underneath their windshield wiper.
You have done that? I never done that. So what made you do that? Were you triggered at that point to say, I need to tell this person what to do?
Because at the time I lived in an apartment complex. And so if I can barely open my door to get into my car and I feel like I have to Dukes the Hazard it, then I'm putting a fucking sign on your windshield and say, move over. This is ridiculous. Let me have some space.
So you felt the need to project out like what you needed.
Yes. And they were pre-developed signs that had Mickey Mouse on them and everything. It was so awesome.
Signs of Mickey Mouse.
And I would put them on the damn windshield. I was so mad. I would get so mad at people.
But when I first started going through my awakening, I was opening my car door once and there was a car kind of close to me and they were parked properly. It's just the parking spaces were small. And so I accidentally kicked my door and it went into theirs and it left a ding. And I didn't really feel like I was responsible because the parking spaces were so small, but at the same time I had left a ding. So I go outside and I'm standing there and I'm going, okay, God, I don't feel this is my fault, but if I need to take responsibility for this, I'm going to wait 3.5 minutes. And if this comes out, I'll
3.5 minutes?
son of a bitch, at like 3 minutes and 28 seconds, the lady walks up to the car. I'm like, fuck. So
yeah, but the point is you had morals. You set the line of what you wanted moral wise.
Exactly.
So you put that in place. So then you said, okay, when I'm doing it. However, when it hit, you're probably like, shit.
But you know what? It made me feel so good because the lady was absolutely in shock that I did it. And I was able to find one of those, dent buster people and, $250 later.
And that's a difference because I can tell you in New Jersey, no one gives a flying fuck if they hit your car. If there's a dink or anything, they're like, yeah, well, you live in New Jersey. Like,
The excuse they give, you live in New
that's
Jersey.
the excuse you get in New Jersey. Like, I have so many dinks in my car, like paint cuffs, and I'm just like, "Yeah, I live in New Jersey, and that's just the way it is. It doesn't matter if you have a brand new car or not. It is what it is. But like that's a culture thing, I think too. Like when you go in different areas, you just feel like this privileged moment where, like, oh well, that car was too close. So, they deserve that. It's like, really? But I do think that it comes off depending on how people's morals are,
Yeah.
what society is, what's the culture. Like, even though we're in a country, it doesn't matter. Like, each state might have something a little bit different etiquette wise.
Well, do you think it might also depend on maybe their financial position? Somebody dings your car or does something they know they absolutely cannot afford to pay for it.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I
Sure.
still
There's,
feel like if somebody did that, and they at least owned up to me and said, "Hey, I'm really sorry. Like it was a total accident. I don't have insurance. I don't have any way to do this, but I just, whatever." I feel like some people may disagree with this and, but I don't know. There's something about taking responsibility that is almost enough for me.
Yeah, I agree.
so here's one on the list that I have an issue with this. So I want to know what you ladies think about personal grooming in public. So
Depends
this
on what they're doing.
a person should not clip or chew their nails in public,
Oh, where's my
out
husband?
their
when you need him?
noses, or brush their hair in places other than the bathroom. Many people find it acceptable to brush their hair in public places, but doing so leaves hair and dead skin cells all over the place. I am a freak when it comes to being clean, and I can't even fucking do hot yoga. I will be honest. I have an issue with it. Like I feel like I'm sweating everywhere. I can't do it. But there are things where I've seen people clip their nails on the fucking bus, and I'm like, what is happening?
Listen to this. So I can't say names, but my husband used to play poker every Friday night. And there
Right?
was someone that would, I don't know if he was a regular or if he was a fill-in, but almost every time he would bring his nail clippers. And at the poker table, he would sit there and clip his nails. And
What?
that's somebody's dining
At the
room
poker
table.
table? Why? Why?
It really is a dining room table that they're playing poker on, right? Well, I mean, there's a table that sits on top of it, but he would sit there and clip his nails. And then we saw him another time. We were at an auction and he was just sitting there clipping his nails. And I'm just like, I feel like that kind of stuff, trimming your nose hairs, clipping your nails, those kind of things, those should be reserved for the bathroom. If you're throwing on some mascara or brushing your hair, whatever, but
So has anyone ever questioned this guy of why he needs to do this during a poker?
nobody will say anything to him.
Oh my God, please, somebody ask him.
Oh,
Nobody, and that's what I said. I'm like, why don't you say something? And like, it's like nobody wants to rock the boat. I'm like, rock that bitch. I'm like, this is not okay.
I would totally say something.
I would know.
She just
You're like,
passed
really gonna do
away.
that now?
My mother, she just passed away. God bless her soul. But
Mm.
she had a habit of, she would always pick her teeth. Like after we ate or something, she would just walk around with like a toothpick. And my sisters and I would always get on her like, Mom, what in the hell are you doing? She'd say, well, isn't it better than I'm walking around with spinach in my teeth? We're like, we would tell you if you have spinach in your teeth, put the damn toothpick away.
I think that's an age thing too.
Yeah.
Because my grandma used to do the same thing. She always had a toothpick in her mouth.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, definitely, it's definitely how you're brought up, how things are pattern wise, what you're brought up around. That, and I think there's a point in when you get at a certain age, you just don't give a fuck. You're just like, whatever. I'm
about
okay to.
Nose at a restaurant.
What was that?
What about blowing your nose at a restaurant?
Blowing your nose at a restaurant. Depends how loud. Now, my ex, he was incredibly loud with blowing his nose. He sounded like there was a fucking tuba. I could never understand it. He's probably getting mad at me right now, but it is what it is. But like, there's I just don't get it. Like I even when I sneeze, I do small sneezes in public and I sneeze in like multiples because I'm like, I don't want to sneeze loud because when I sneeze, like literally when I sneeze, like everybody can hear me from Switzerland because it's echoing. Like that's how I sneeze. So like I have taken that thing where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna sneeze small, so I'll do like short sneezes and stuff like that. But I don't get it either. I think you're right. I think the blowing the nose thing, I'm like, I don't understand where someone feels like that they need to brashly blow their nose to the point where it's like it sounds like a goddamn tuba.
I've done it. I don't feel like I'm very loud though either.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've done it before too. And the reason I asked is one time my husband and we were eating dinner and I had to blow my nose. And I mean, I didn't do it like a trumpet or anything.
Yeah.
And he told me that's so rude. And I was shocked because I never occurred to me not to do it. So
Yeah.
So this is a big one, and I have to bow out of this conversation because this is a family one for me. Treating store employees or wait staff rudely.
oh, I hate that.
I agree with you, but I can tell you right now, especially with my family, and I gotta mum's the word for me right now. But I can't tell with my family when we go to a restaurant. It's a hit or miss how we treat staff, and I just it makes me cringe. It makes me cringe. There's a privilege thing, and it bothers the fuck out of me. It bothers the fuck out of me because these people who are wait staff, especially, you don't know what they're going through. You don't know what hardships they have. You don't know all that stuff. And I do have anything that is customer service. I have a lot of respect for because I was in customer service, so I know it. So, I wasn't a waitress, but it was enough to, serve somebody. So I feel like, depending on what it is, or, yeah, there have been bad waiters or waitresses or so forth where they have been rude, but I do feel like out of that respect, you do not know what that person's been through, that you should not be treating them that you are fucking privileged 24/7. That's just my take. That's how I am with etiquette on that.
And I will tell you, recently I was a waitress while I'm trying to find my purpose in life. I decided to go be a waitress. Now, I've run multi-million dollar corporations. Being a waitress was the hardest thing I've ever done. As a matter of fact, I
I believe
asked
it.
to be made a hostess, and it is so hard, and it gave me such an appreciation for what those people do. Now, I have never been one to be mean to wait staff or what have you, but it really, even more so now, it upsets me when I see people being rude. And a lot of these people, they're single moms or their kids going to college, or they're killing themselves trying to make ends meet, and it's a trigger for me.
Yeah.
How do you guys feel about tipping? So I don't believe in being rude to them either. And even when they are not doing they're not being of service for their job, a lot of times you get really crappy waiters or waitresses. I still won't be rude to them. But tip wise, where do you guys do with that? So let's just say they are not attentive, they screw up your meal, they don't they're not doing their job. How do you believe that if you don't tip, that's rude, or you feel like you
No,
still
I
have to
never
tip?
not tip. I always give the average of what it should be, whatever markup that is. And I will give the average of that. The people who I feel that have given me over the top ones, I always give a little bit more. That's just the way I am because I
Me
know
too.
I've been in that situation. I understand that being a hostess. But for me, if somebody is horrible, I will never not tip because I believe in karma and believe in showcasing that person love, and I would rather do it in that way. That's just me. That's just how I am. But I
I
have
always
had yeah, I mean, I've had shitty waiters and waitresses. Where it's like, that why are you even here? But it's like I don't know what their day's been like. I don't know what it is. So I have more awareness on that level. I would never showcase in the level of like saying I'm not going to give you a tip.
So before I was awake, I would I'm not really proud of this, but at the same time, I do think it's kind of funny. So if somebody was a really bad wait, and they had to be pretty bad. So, it was a struggle to get our food. It was a struggle to get their attention. They weren't, whatever it may be. Instead of giving them a financial tip, I would give them a written tip of this is what you can do for better service next time. And I would write it on the receipt.
Shut up.
No. I would
That's
do it with kindness, though.
Kindness. That's that.
I would be compassionate. Like, look, I get it. You're
Isn't
busy.
that?
You're busy, but let me give you a tip.
There's
You
so
know.
where is the kindness in that?
I
So
don't know. I'm just being real. As I used to do that. I wouldn't do that today, but I feel like if you're a server or and I understand, I know how hard it is. I still feel like you should always try to be your best and do your best. And sometimes they get exhausted and they're worn down and they just don't, right? And some just
Right.
don't care.
right.
Depends on the
So-
person.
You're right. So we are getting we're over on time, but there's a couple more that I just want to finish because we have to, because it's funny. The other ones that are on here, and I'm going to kind of blow through this list, is leaving messes in public bathrooms and not washing your hands.
I don't wash my hands. I use hand sanitizer.
I think that's okay, but I feel like that's a judgmental thing too. Like, why are you washing someone to the point where it's like they didn't wash their hands? Like, I think it's different if it's like at a restaurant, you're like, okay, that's a waiter or that's, a cook. They didn't wash their hands.
Well, my
Kinda
thing is I have to go touch a door that other people who didn't wash their hands touch. So why am I going to wash my hands and then touch a dirty door? So after I walk out the door, I put hand sanitizer on.
Yeah.
I always take the tissue and hold
Ah.
the door open with the
There you go.
yeah. But it's
Oh, that's
funny because I will always put my hands in a public restroom, but I don't always do it in my own. Which is, I run my hands, but when I'm in a public restroom, like I'm washing,
Yeah.
deep washing.
So Vicky, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I am. What is one of your favorite rudeness stories? Do you have anything that where you feel like, oh my God, that was so rude, or something that like take it down here out of this list or outside of this list?
Sweetheart, I was in homeowners association management for 25 years.
Oh, you got some good ones then.
Of rude stories. So I can't even think of them right now, but when you're sitting there in front of people who are angry, it's amazing what they'll do and what they'll say.
So how do you react with some of this anger that you get with some of this rudeness? Are you aware of it enough where you feel like, okay, they're reacting, I know that they're being rude and I'm not going to sit there and try to argue with them? Because it's one thing when you're at work and you're trying to do like the customer service thing where you're like, well, this guy's being rude, but I'm at work and it's customer service,
I think it depends on the person, because I'd like to think, I'm very sarcastic, and like a lot of times to cover up my emotion, I make like snide little comments and that gets me in time. But you can tell, and you get to a point where you can tell where somebody is genuinely upset and they just don't feel like they're being heard, or they're just jerks and they're coming in. And I will tell you, like, I'm pretty thick skinned. So when people would come in and they could say nasty things about me or what have you, but when they started it with my staff or somebody that I felt wasn't a strong personality, my mama bear could come out big time.
Right.
And I can't intimidating. As a matter of fact, one time I was taking this test in Cosmo. It said, are you assertive or aggressive? And I was taking it and I looked at my husband and he said, what are you doing? I said, I'm taking this test on whether or not I'm assertive or aggressive. And he says, oh, where does Marquis du Sade fall on this list? And I thought, what? And another time I guess I'm starting to see myself more, because a gal came into my office and she did something like really what I felt at the time was just clueless. And I thought I was being nice and I was trying to be funny. And I said, so when the aliens came down and just sucked your brain right out of your head, were you aware? Or did it just happen? And she burst into tears. And I thought, what did I say? So
That is so amazing.
yeah, I thought I was being nice. I was trying to like be sensitive.
Yeah, but that's a good point, is like you're trying to be sensitive, but you have that snarky, and listen, Vicky, I fall in the same category as you, or you can kind of come off as snarky because you were brought up that way, or it's something you're comfortable in and you think it's a joke, and then you realize you hurt someone's, but the difference is between people who are being rude and who are reacting to it is that we have empathy. So when we see somebody who's like freaking out over it, we're like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I don't, totally different.
Well, let's take this a step further. And so, Vicky, you called yourself out, and I love you for it, because you said you make sarcastic comments to cover up your emotional discomfort. So what's your take on rudeness when it's somebody who, like, I know multiple people who make jokes and then they say they're just kidding, or, I'm just playing around, when damn well that's how they
They're
really
not.
feel. And
Yeah.
they're using it because it's easier and it's more comfortable for them to do it in a joking manner than it is to just outright be like, this is how I feel, take it or leave it,
I ever since I've been going through my awakening, I've thought about that, because there have been times in my life where I have said something jokingly, but there was a smidgen of truth to it. But I can honestly say that I never did it to be cruel. Like I was kind of joking. I don't think I ever like went after the juggler or anything like that. But people who are like that, and I have a hard time with that, because as you're going through this awakening problem, it's all about not being judgmental and accepting people for who they are. And I have a really hard time with that, because when I see people who are being rude or being hurtful to others, I am very judgmental towards them, and I do not like it. And it's hard. I struggle with that every day.
Yeah, I can proudly say that I have worked through that, but it's not an easy thing to do, but it is something
It's
you have
not.
to be consistent with. But even
Yeah.
like with just what I said, because, I know that for the most part that it's not intentional, but you do know that you can, especially when you are intuitive and you are empathic, or when you are, you have a lot of telepathy going on, you can always know when there is truth in their words, even though it's a joke,
Yeah.
And so
Mm,
that's when I have, it almost is a double-edged sword when you're waking up, or you are, on your journey, and you can see the truth through the lies that someone's saying, or through their, you just can see the truth. And it's hurtful because you don't want to call them out. It's not always your job to fix them. But at the same time, you have to, it comes into that feeling of, you can hear the truth in their voice. You can feel that energy. And so I think that it is rude. I feel like it's almost better to be blunt in a compassionate way, if you can be, and just speak your truth, and just be like, we can agree to disagree.
right. Yeah, for sure. So we're getting close on time here, but I do want to bring up, which was the number one thing on this list, and I agree with it 100%. Actually, 200%. It says, ready? Now, for people who don't have animals, you won't get this, but not picking up after your dog and letting them use the bathroom on private property. Oh, I have an issue with this. And Johanna, we made I'm saying we, although I was kind of the one who was like, you should make a shirt about own your own shit. You need to make a shirt that says hashtag own your own shit. I want to go further. I want to say own your own shit and own your pet shit. Because it really, I can't tell you how much this bothers me, because I go out of my way to make sure I take care of my pets. I make sure that it's clean and so forth. And I've seen this. I've seen people just kind of walk away and they go, you happy with that? You just left your dog shit on someone's sidewalk.
I would never leave it on someone's private property. Now, when I
Yeah.
take my dog to the park and he goes and it's next to the woods,
The
I'm
woods
not
are
gonna
different.
I'm not
Yeah.
going to pick it up because I mean, there's bears and deer pooping. Like ain't nobody picking up their shit. So
No, that's a different.
what's the dog's going to do?
If you're in the suburbs
Yeah.
and like you see that, like I just, I live in a very close proximity where there's houses on top of each other, and
That's way
I just-
different.
yeah, totally different scenario on that. But I totally agree with that. There's a rudeness, there's a responsibility that I think that needs to be in play. But again, I don't know.
That's the other thing that gets me is if you get a pet, you better be willing to take responsibility for that pet, for what the damage they create, the bathroom thing, all of it. Like they
Right
are
on.
like a child.
Yeah.
They are a part of you and they are dependent on you to some extent when you take them in like that. So you need to take responsibility for them.
Right on. Well, Vicky, thank you so much for jumping on with us.
Thank you for allowing me. This was so much fun.
It was fun.
We're gonna have more soapbox episodes. I think our next one was in it's gonna be September already, right? Because we're doing this monthly.
Mhm.
But yeah, so then we're gonna have new topics and so forth, and we're gonna bring people on just like Vicky. If they want to chime in and give their 2 cents, then that's what this is all about. It's bringing people on board.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right. So for next week's episode, just to remind you guys, we are going to be on Facebook, not YouTube, Facebook next week to just do readings and, our donations. We'll probably have giveaways. We did a giveaway. Like I said, we were on for almost 2 hours. I'm not saying it's going to be that long, but we'll think of some kind of cool giveaway. So definitely follow us on Facebook. It's Breakdown Live on Facebook. And then our next episode is going to be on Monday or the 26th, August 26th with Silver Wolf. She's going to be explaining to us hauntings and exorcisms. We are super excited.
I have
am
lots of questions.
I'm wearing my Ghostbusters t-shirt. I am ready.
Did you wear you didn't wear your shirt the other night, did you? Yesterday?
I might wear it for Facebook for our next one. Yeah, no, I
Okay.
didn't do it yet. I gotta alter it a little bit. I gotta make it 80s.
80s.
So Johanna got me a t-shirt that I'm going to be wearing so everyone can see that reveal when we come on Facebook. That will be the
Exciting.
reveal.
The big reveal. Tanya's t-shirt.
Yeah, right. Thanks everyone for popping on. This was fun.
Okay, bye guys.
Bye-bye.